low expectations year one, huge improvement year one to year two. But where do you go from here? I mean, the next steps, it's not easy, and he's admitted that as well. So what's next?
See, this is where it gets hard.
Yeah.
Because the expectations when he came here, that first season, their expectations were to lose and get last. You know how easy it is to get last? Pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like, I think Sean and I could probably coach and get last. Well, matter of fact, I guarantee it. But the point is that with the low expectations, it makes it easier, the less pressure. And then last year, I think, again, the pressure was off that team. It was a search for Bedard. And I think as a group, they banded together, and it's us against the world. And I think that was their fighting cry, like, hey, we're not getting last. We're better than that. Now it's interesting. You pull in really good players. You've got legit NHL players that are trying to win and are still in the terms of Jersey, he's 24. So I think now the expectations are much, much higher. And with expectations, now comes pressure. You've given a coach more term, more money, well, get more pressure. So when it's easy is when no one's looking at you. Now everybody's looking. Like, okay, everybody says you're great. Everybody says you get this culture. Everybody says you get everybody along and you can push teams along. Well, it's time to do it. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that pressure. I know when you look at his last couple of seasons in juniors, blew everybody out of the water. Like, okay, yeah, we're good. We know we're good, and we're gonna win. And I think so. He's been in an atmosphere where he's been good and been able to get that kind of a record. It was a really good winning record. But I think here now, people expect this team to be better, so they better be better. The pressure is on him. I think, and that's what we're going to try to continue to do on this show, is we're going to say they're not ready for the playoffs. They're not there. Can they? Hey, you never know when the goalie gets hot, and guys have career years and all of those things. But those kind of expectations aren't on Barry yet. But now is the time. He's got to prove he can turn this ragtag bunch of guys from 2 years ago into a perennial playoff team, and that's where the pressure is.
And especially with the moves that were made in this offseason, because it went from year one, you have, I mean, no offense to these guys, but like Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel, guys at the twilight of their career. And then you have, young players. Like, there was such that juxtaposition. And then the gap got bridged a little bit last year with players more like Nick Bukestad, Troy Stetcher type. And now you take one step further, and it's Matt Dumba, Sean Durzi, Jason Zucker. Yeah. Those are all guys who are going to improve your team. And I mean, Pete Jensen said it, like, they project the Coyotes right now to have the biggest improvement of any team in the NHL. That's the expectation to me that's on Bear's shoulders right now. Like, if they have to be even better than last year, because if they take a huge dip, like last year we looked at the roster and said, this might be the worst roster we've ever seen, and they outperformed that. Well, now the expectation's higher, and nobody is sitting there saying they need to make the playoffs, and like if they don't, it's a tragedy. That's not the expectation, but the expectation is improvement. And I don't know, I feel like they're expected to take a step.
Do you know where they're getting more pressure from too, Leah? And I think we haven't touched on this a lot over our shows over the summer, and we're going to as the season approaches. But ownership, and here's why: this ownership has shown a commitment to this rebuild, right? And they've been, hey, we're willing to bite the bullet, and we're willing to lose, and I think that changed. I think that changed this season. I think when you look at it, this team is not built now to get a top 5 draft pick. They're not. I don't think this is a bottom 3, bottom 5 team. And that tells me that's a signaling from ownership that, okay, it was okay. We got a couple of good draft picks, but it's time. Mm-hmm. And now, not only is it time, we'll give you some money. We can sign Cooley and Zucker, and we'll get all these guys signed. And we'll even give you money, coach, but you better win. And I think now this is the first time that he's going to get that push from management and ownership that, wins matter now, and we're going to evaluate you based on wins. So I think that is definitely going to add pressure, and maybe not as much this year, but when the new contract kicks in and the following year, there's going to be pressure. This team has to make the playoffs in one of these coming years during this contract.
So do you feel that making the playoffs in the 3-year span is what he needs to do to earn the contract?
I do. I don't expect it this year. I don't expect it next year. But by the second year of the new contract and the last year of that new contract, he even if he just gets in and you get beat in the first round, you have to show those little steps that you're progressing towards the ultimate goal, which one is the Stanley Cup, but 2 is a perennial playoff team. You can't get there until you make the playoffs. And I think this team is going to have to learn to get there. And once they get there, then they can talk about staying there. I think it's imperative for him to be a coach after that 3-year contract. And when that's getting ready to expire, for him to be re-signed here in Arizona, he has to have made the playoffs by that last season.